Hey, you, and welcome back to the Daughters podcast. I am so excited to record another episode and to have a guest on. And it's actually the second guest this season, so very excited for that. I was sharing in the last episode actually that I really felt God telling me to speak with people that I know and not just speak to anyone really, but really speak to people that I have followed along their journey a little bit and just know that they would be a great addition for people to also, just hear them and their journey and be inspired by that and, learn a bit about them. And so I'm very excited today to have you on, Phil. And I would just love if you could just start with introducing yourself a little bit to everyone, and so we can start getting to know you.
Hey, Karina, thank you for having me on. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm really looking forward to this. My name is Phil. I am from Austria originally, and we met in Portugal. So that's where I've been living for the last almost 5 years. And I just moved back to Austria last year, so 2025, because it's already 2026, which my brain still sometimes needs a little bit of time to process. And I am 34 years old. I work in IT. I am a musician for all of my life, basically. And I have a unique journey as well with faith, with Jesus, which we're probably going to get into. And I'm very happy to be here today.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, let's get right into that actually. I would love just to start with talking about basically, what your life looked like before meeting Jesus and then getting into what brought you to actually meet him and, what actually made you then follow him. So maybe you want to just give us a little bit of a background. If you want to start in your childhood, like having touch points with faith, maybe you can start there, but whatever you feel is relevant to your story.
Yeah, I grew up here in the Austrian countryside, I would say, and I did grow up going to church, so like the local Roman Catholic church here, where I had some touch points with, I would say, the institution of religion and the Catholic Church here. And I personally wasn't connecting so much back then with that particular institution. And I guess once I got to make my own decisions as a young adult, I didn't really go there anymore. And I don't feel now looking back that I took a lot from it when it comes to faith or like even spirituality in general, I would say. And so I guess in my early 20s, I started to just learn more about the world and maybe potentially learn more things about the Catholic Church that made me want to leave that institution, which I also did in my early 20s. But right around that time, of course, there was still a need for spirituality. Maybe not, of course, maybe not all people have the same, but for me, my early 20s were already a time where in my personal life, I was running into some challenges, I would say, internal, personal, when it comes to basically this time where I guess in how our society works right now, it's a time where we're asked to make like bigger decisions in terms of like life decisions and educational decisions and stuff like this. And I still know that felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders. It felt like a big decision that I didn't feel kind of fully equipped to do, to make.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, with that comes a youth of kind of like growing up, going out, partying a lot, drinking a lot of alcohol. And it was a time in my early 20s when, just some of these things I think brought me to a first time in my life where I felt like I was experiencing, like today I would call it panic attacks. And I would have first episodes of just feeling quite depressed and lost, which I hadn't really had before. So that brings me yeah, kind of like leads into the next part of my, let's say, spiritual journey. And yeah, should I just keep going in that direction?
You can. It's actually interesting. I think we never talked about that, but it's something that I really relate to with, well, first, the first part of definitely feeling like, oh my, I have to have it all figured out, and that pressure and weight of it, and making these huge decisions, and that being such a heavy weight. Like once you've decided, you can't pivot anymore, basically. I think that's something that a lot of people in their early 20s carry. And then also a lot of pressures from outside that tell you who to be and how you have to be, how you have to behave, what you have to be part of. And yeah, basically, for me personally, that was actually something that was so heavy on me, was that I actually felt like a lot of those things I didn't want to take part in, and they didn't really resonate with me fully, but I thought I need to be part of those things because otherwise something is off with me, like something is wrong. I'm just being strange, basically. And then also what you talked about in terms of panic attacks, actually, I think we never chatted about this before either, is that something that so heavy rests on oneself if you experience that. I've experienced that since the age of being, I think, 10 to 12 years old. And it's just something that you kind of like silently carry with you. And you try to, I think that's something that maybe even pushes you into a path of seeking more and having more questions than others, maybe because you're like, I mean, I'm strong, I can do life in this way, but does it have to be that hard, you know? It just poses that question of, can it be easier? Can I change that? And I think that personally pushed me alongside that path to trying to find more solutions, more tools, and then getting that feedback from those tools. Maybe you're actually gonna dive into that a bit as well personally, but from those tools thinking I need to fix more and more of myself, and something's wrong with me personally. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. And it just does feel very heavy at that time. And also at the same time, yeah, I think you said it in a beautiful way where it's also in a way like I also felt like I'm not supposed to feel that way. And it's like none of my friends in that age really kind of was experiencing what I was experiencing, not at least not that I know. And so there even already comes like a layer of maybe shame on there, or like trying to hide it and everything, which obviously doesn't make things better, but just kind of like keeps adding to the burden, right? Yeah, and for me, actually, at that time, I don't know. God just kind of like, I think he was planning to send me off to an early start when it comes to that, because at age 21, then I had like a deep, like a deep personal crisis kind of experience. It was connected to a journey. I was going to Bali with my friends, kind of like first time traveling very far away. And I think there were also some things happening before in my life, just like kind of culminating to the burden, like personal things with friends and like an ex-girlfriend and stuff like this, that just added to this experience of then going on this journey and really kind of like breaking. Like I just felt like something in me broke in a way. And I really had like intense kind of like panic attacks without knowing at the time like what it was, or like having really words for it. And not being able to sleep, and just kind of like spiraling into quite a dark kind of like psychological, emotional space. And also at the same time, while being very, very far away for the first time in my life from home, and even from like Europe as a continent, right, where I live, I think I just felt extra vulnerable in a way. And it was one day where it was in the night, I still remember, and I had this experience where I just needed to fully kind of like surrender. Like I didn't have the energy anymore to just resist what was happening. And I was kind of like feeling like, I was also feeling like something may happen to my heart. I was kind of like afraid I was going to have a heart attack or something like this, because I had like weird sensations in my heart and in my arm and stuff like this. And the hospital checked me out, and they said I'm fine. So that like really also adds to this feeling of like something with me is just really wrong. So I had this kind of surrender experience there. And
over 10 years ago, it was also not that common yet to maybe talk to someone and be like, maybe this is actually a panic attack. I think that also plays into that, right? Today, I mean, today maybe it's even like too much of that. It's like, oh, you have like a mental this, you have a mental that. So it almost like swung into the opposite direction. But
True.
back then, I remember that when I had mental struggles, and I think it started around when I was like 16, 17 years old, that it was more pronounced. But going into my early 20s, my parents actually told me not to see a psychologist because it would get into my medical record. That would be bad for me.
Mm.
So I actually never saw one in my early 20s. I later on actually did, but I thought it was the worst thing that I could do. So it's also something that in like 10 years ago, everyone was even more so left alone with those troubles. And it was even more so that you would maybe think something's wrong with me, but I don't know what it is because no one really spoke about it.
Absolutely true. Yeah. I just did the math, and it's even longer. So it was 2013. So yeah, that's I think that's very important to put
Yeah.
into context as well. As like at that time, really, it was definitely a different time. And I myself, even though I was like generally interested in these things, I didn't have the vocabulary or the understanding or anything around that, or I wasn't kind of like reading books about this, or I wasn't like watching stuff on YouTube about this. So it was really a different time. So yeah, basically ended up having this moment where I just needed to surrender to this like kind of basically like a fear of death that it was at the time. And that slowly started to change things for the better, which now also looking back, right, it makes sense. It's a little bit of like bringing acceptance to just what is rather than just resisting what is, and like just kind of like adding to the fear. But how it went for me on that journey is that during like the last days of this journey to Bali, I kind of like ran into like this bookstore, and this book kind of like stood out to me. I must have read the title before or something like this. And it was a book of a guy called Eckhart Tolle. It was called The Power of Now. And so I must have read this title somewhere before because I was like, oh yeah, I need to buy this book. And then I started reading this book. And at that time, that book was very helpful and insightful for me because it was the first resource that was kind of like talking about like the quality of experiences that I had at this time. And for example, like there were terms in there like the ego, which I had never heard before, right? Which nowadays is like most people are somewhat familiar with that, or the pain body. And that kind of like, I know we share this like common kind of like history of then being in the new age for a number of years. And so that was kind of like my gateway into like the next season of my spiritual life, which led me into the new age.
I actually read that book as well. I think it was it was just a very common book to
Very
stumble
popular.
across, and very popular. Yeah. So entering in that phase and entering into the new age, how was that experience for you? Like were you on like a trajectory where you felt like, okay, I'm getting better, or the things that I'm trying to solve, they're being solved, or was that like an up and down journey? Like how did you experience that? Because obviously there was something that you were still searching that later on basically let you out of that again. So I'm curious to hear what your experience throughout that process was.
Yeah, I would say in the beginning, definitely it was a blessing for me. It felt like a blessing because I felt finally I had new ideas and concepts to understand what was happening to me, and to kind of like understand and maybe even reframe like what I was going through and what was happening to me. It basically was also something that made me go, which again, looking back also, and I think in that case, it's a good thing to have something to rationalize what's happening and to be like, okay, maybe I'm not just going crazy, but maybe actually there's something happening in the background that could be something like a personal or spiritual transformation. And so, in the beginning, I mean, I was just hooked, I mean, this book was very important to me. And then I started feeling better and kind of like, I mean, the big change in the beginning was like, what I was going through had a purpose through what I was learning from, like, for example, these books, right? Because I went from, I'm just going crazy and I don't know what's wrong with me, to, okay, this is a journey of spiritual evolution. I'm like, parts of me are dying, but parts of me are rebirthing and all these kinds of things. So that definitely, got me hooked. And then from there, I just went like a lot deeper into it. So like more books, and then as it is, right, it's like watching videos, going to seminars, doing workshops, and then also doing like trainings, and then kind of like progressing on all of that path basically. And yeah, I mean, I can now look back on, these probably, I would say, more or less like, yeah, more than 10 years of kind of like being on that journey. And I mean, so much to say, but in general, and also kind of like leading towards why am I not still kind of like in that same world, right? It's, yeah, I would say in the beginning, definitely like, it felt like, yeah, this is amazing. This gives me all the answers. And also, I think just in general, then also when we, for example, I'm sure I started going to like events that are more like in esotericism or the New Age. And then the nice thing there as well is like people are very open in these circles. Usually they're very open-minded. They're very, yeah, I would say tolerant. They're very like, kind of like everything is okay. You're okay how you are. And you start to learn about like self-love and all these things, which at that time I think are a step up from like, kind of like disliking oneself. So like it was one step in the right direction. And just feeling, oh, I'm okay how I am, even though I'm flawed, and like it's people where, oh, we can show our authentic selves. I don't have to wear this mask all the time that I have to wear in society. And I do also see that in these events, right? That I think that's also one of the reasons why people go there. I mean, it's nice to feel accepted. It's nice to feel part of a group. It's nice to be able to be more authentic than maybe sometimes we can be out in the world or like in our, I don't know, work lives or whatever it is. So I definitely did like and enjoy that. But like also now looking back, definitely I can see that there was always, I would say, waves, in the sense that like for a while I would feel good and feel like I'm progressing, but then also there would be certain times when, yeah, I don't know, the darkness would come back in a different way, or where I would become a lot more unstable again when it comes to my emotions. So I just
I don't know if you experienced that as well, but for me it almost always felt like something where when the more I was occupied and the more I had my rituals and practices, and maybe even just at that point in time a training or coaching or something going on, it was like my life was much better because I had something that I was intensely focusing on, and that was in my mind also supposed to help me. So I knew that was the value of it. It was supposed to progress me. But once I was done with that one thing and I would be just left to my own devices, I was kind of starting to decline again. And I was always like, this can't be, like, I did this next step, it's not possible. So I was trying to pile on more rituals, more, I don't know, different kind of modalities to help me through my day-to-day life. And what happened to me personally actually is that I started to step out of the normal day-to-day life and kind of entered into this bubble of, these are the things that I'm doing and that I'm engaging with, also being surrounded by these particular people, and not even being part of like normal day-to-day experiences anymore. And fascinatingly enough, though, this actually even transpired to the work that I did. So even in the company that I was working in, people around me were so similar in that regard that it was even brought in there the way that we engaged with each other. And it didn't really help. It didn't really change much in the long run. It was almost like it's kind of like another mask that was covering up the real longing that was in my heart for something else.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're like
I agree. No, I think it's the same. It's like more and more I think I was the same, like trying to just more and more live in that world and like just amongst these people, and kind of like retreat from I don't know, from more general life or whatever. I would say there was definitely a desire to do it just because that's where one is comfortable, right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, because that's where everybody understands me, and like, you know, and all these things. It's a little bit of like a, yeah, maybe this like Disney or fairy tale kind of thinking as well, of like, oh, you know, we're all so tolerant and we're all just like, everything's just love and light. I mean, now today, you know, it's a little bit of a meme already, but that was, I think, also the perspective for a while. Yeah, for sure.
When I did yoga teacher training, and I was immersed in that space for like a month. And when I came back, I was like, how can I enter this world again? Like it was so being in such a bubble of not having to work, just focusing on those things that are so enjoyable. And then you come back and you're like, no one understands me. Everyone's so weird. Like, why do I have to now go back to doing all those things that are less enjoyable, basically? And can't just go back into like the little jungle spot where the ocean is next to you. And yes, you could decide to live like that, but also that wasn't really what I wanted long term. So it's just something you just got so immersed in that, and then it's harder even to live that life that you were brought up in, and that you maybe actually want to pursue yourself as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, now also looking at it, you know, it's definitely a kind of like an immaturity, I think, that is just also accepted in that world, where it's like, yeah, you know, like we shouldn't even have to deal with all of this and all these kinds of things. So it's a little bit like bypassy, right? Which we also not, I hear people talk about now as well, of course, like this kind of like spiritual bypassing thing. Maybe it's also an age thing, I don't know, but yeah, it's funny that like it kind of makes one almost like, I would say, you know, weaker, in the sense that it's just like, yeah, let's just take all the uncomfortable stuff away, you know, and just like, just stay with the Buddha bowl, and just like, you know, it's like morning routine to evening routine is kind of like your whole life. And then the rest just manifest, you know, the money that you need to live. You just manifest that, you know, it just shows up magically in your bank account. You don't need to work. That's so like 2021, you know, it's like, so that's so 3D of you.
Yeah, that sounds kind of accurate. Yeah.
And also, I mean, you know, looking like we're going to speak about what happened after, I guess, but it's also like, I find myself now sometimes like, I don't know, wanting to impulsively like bash at it, but also at the same time, I kind of like, I'm curious how you see this as well. But I also see, again, what I said before. It's like, for me, it was a step in the right direction, for sure, like for a certain time. And then I think, you know, from a certain point on, then you kind of like, at least for me, what's happened is like that I kind of like started being in a loop of like, and this is what we also speak about, right? Which now I see much more critical in the kind of like new age esoteric world, where it just becomes a perpetual thing and a never ending cycle of like having to learn more, do more, manifest better, heal more things. So it's just like an endless cycle. And also at the same time, actually, it's a perfect business model as well, because there's like so much stuff to sell like all the time when it comes to just evolving, like how I guess it's called in that world, you know, just like raising your frequency and becoming more self-aware and loving yourself more and all these things. It's like they all never end. And I also had that feeling of like, yeah, okay, like if things in my life aren't the way that I want them, it's obviously because my frequency is not high enough, or I need to just heal more traumas that is like holding me in this low vibration, or I need to use more techniques. I need to use them better. I need to use them more often. My routines, my morning and evening routines need to be, and then we get into also deeper stuff, which is like the whole Joe Dispenza and like change your reality, and like kind of like this whole kind of like niche in there that's this whole like make yourself into a god kind of like niche, right? Which is, yeah, definitely I would say quite dangerous to get into, and I definitely got into that as well. And then also there comes this whole thing of like plant medicines, which I also, you know, participated in. It's like ceremonial type therapeutic with a therapeutic intention setting, but at the same time also just starting to play with quite dangerous and questionable methods, I would say. And at the same time, also that they never end. So that's why you have the people who they've been to their hundreds ayahuasca ceremony and stuff like this. And that was something that took me a long time to kind of like arrive at, to seeing like, okay, this is a loop that is never ending, and that's actually not fully giving me what I'm actually longing for.
Yeah, I think something that you said, and that kind of has been weaving throughout what you were saying even before, is it's not that it was all bad, like for the personal journey that one was on, right? So there is these moments, and I think also, I mean, it's a significant span of one's life. So for you, it was more than 10 years. For me personally as well, it was around 10 years as well. And in that time space, it's you also grow up and you change as a person and you learn. And I think there were some parts of it actually, maybe more the like psychological parts as well, where I definitely learned to, I don't know, even communicate better and just be more open about my feelings, also to share my stance on things and stand up for myself. And there were a lot of things that I learned about being a person that is like rooted in who she is, and what I allow to happen around me and what I don't allow, and all of those things. So there's definitely something that was helpful as well. And also for me, there was a relief, like for a time period where I felt like, okay, this is getting better and this is getting better, and I'm less anxious or less, I don't know, I feel less that I have to fit into things that I really don't want to fit into, or really shouldn't even fit into. And so there was something about that was surely not all too bad. And then it just, that part of where it becomes this, what you said, this perpetual cycle where it never finds an end to it. And I think you're very spot on with the fact that that also really feeds into the business model that is kind of pushed to the front in this space, where a lot of people make money from this belief, from this scene that is out there, from this whole area and community of people, where it's like you need to now buy the next thing and have this tool at your hand and understand this concept, etc. And also the fact that it's always kind of your fault. So you always have to figure it out, what's going on inside of you, what's going wrong with you, what is the thing that's in there in you that you need to change. And I mean, maybe that's exactly where we're getting at now. But for me personally, that was this thing where the burden just got too heavy. And I got to that point of like, I cannot carry that by myself. Like I can't change all of those things that people want me to change. And then they tell me that everything that I need, I have inside of me, but then also that's bad. And so like, how am I supposed to care for myself and carry myself? And yeah, maybe that's just where we're getting at. So what was that point for you where you were like, okay, this is not working anymore? And yeah, how did that turning point look like, where then you gave your life to Christ? And I know that wasn't like an immediate process, but maybe, yeah, just take us a bit on that journey.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to also say to what you just shared and what we talked about first is also like, I think that there's nothing, because the reality is, right, we can always learn, we can always get better at things. And so I'm definitely a fan of like, you know, keep going, keep refining, keep learning. That's all like really human and natural. What I just find now in retrospect, like the dangerous thing with these things is what you said. It's like it keeps being your own fault. And also I think the tools and the pathway that are presented are just often misleading, right? Because if it doesn't lead you to actually, for example, like doing better work or like being of a better service to people in the world or whatever, then like that there's no reason to really like keep going with like whatever courses or like trainings or whatever it is. So yeah, for me, so I had already felt, looking back now, I had felt this like kind of like two hearts within my body for a while, where I was feeling like, yeah, okay, like I do go to these events. These are my people. I was also like playing music, of course, like in these circles and everything. So I was kind of like becoming more and more connected and invested also into this world, into this like scene in a way. But at the same time, I already for a couple of years now, looking back, I also feel like at a certain point I had a little bit more of a deeper like masculine awakening. I was learning from other people that were outside of this kind of like bubble. So, and then like some contrasting views started building within me, or like there were some things where I was like, I'm not sure like how much I agree anymore with like some of the stuff that's been done there. I was also starting to see the discrepancies, but at the same time, I was still for quite a while. I was still like, well, yeah, like I don't agree with everything, but it's kind of like these are kind of like my people. This is kind of like where I hang out. So I didn't really have I wouldn't have seen any alternative in a way of like what to turn to, and then and then there's also this whole thing that like we start building an identity around that as well, right? And for me, example with the music, it was also something where I was feeling, yeah, like in a way more invested in like kind of like just keeping going with that world. But I'm also a person that how can I say, if I know something to be true, then for me like there's no way back. Like I've just always been like that, and so yeah. How really things shifted for me were this was like a very deep experience, was early 2025, so like probably more or less a year ago now. I was I was at home and I was preparing a meal, and I just had this like I don't know, I just had this idea within me to listen to a particular spiritual teacher. She's actually she used to be super new age, super deep in the esoteric world, and I always really liked her because she was always super authentic and was just actually like really standing out in terms of like how honestly she shares about her own lives, including her own struggles, while being like a spiritual teacher. And I just had this impulse. I just want to listen to a video of this woman that I hadn't heard in a while. Her name is Lori Ladd. And so I put on one of her last live streams on YouTube that she did while I was preparing this meal. And she was sharing with her audience. She was basically saying like, look, I know this triggers a lot of people in my audience, but I just can't do it any other way than just like sharing, like the only thing that gives me anything spiritually right now is the connection with Jesus that I'm exploring. And I was like, whoa, that did something to me. And I was like, I kind of want to learn about Jesus as well. And I think at that time it started clicking for me that I was maybe for the first time like seriously kind of like thinking about this thing of like maybe like the teachings of Jesus and like Christianity are not exactly the same as the Roman Catholic Church, because in my brain for the longest time those were just the same things, and that's why I was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe even, and now it's so funny looking back, it's like I had been like singing worship songs in my vocal training that I did and stuff like this, and now thinking back I was like, yeah, I kind of like always enjoyed these in a way, but then there was this thing of like, well, but like the Roman Catholic, it's kind of like, no, I don't vibe with that, so that's kind of like why I dismissed it, which is super sad to think about now.
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe I can just start learning about Jesus. And so then I guess I just started watching a couple of videos on YouTube. And then pretty soon after that, the YouTube algorithm served me my first ever that I saw like a New Age to Jesus testimony of someone. And yeah, I just watched that, and it was that was the point where for me like the lights went on, and I was just like I learned so much in that video, and there were so many parallels in that video to me in my own journey, that I was just like, oh my God, like I think that's what's happening to me, and that was a big
Yeah.
change in my life.
That's so beautiful. Was that the video that made you then go to church for the first time, or did you come to church before that? And was that also the video where this person connected with the other person, the story that you told me before?
Yeah, so I had actually been to church, to Freedom City, the church where we met and that you're going to. I had been there like 2 years before, once, just because I, being a musician, even over the years, I did notice that like worship music, Christian worship music, was just super hitting my heart, like in the most wonderful way. And so 2 years before, I don't actually fully remember what kind of like heart space I was in at the time, but I just Googled Worship Lisbon one day, and then Freedom City, the church, showed up. And so I went there.
It's so funny. Google is really serving us well. It's kind of just got us like, I don't know, I think as a church we've never done SEO, but like God has done it well.
It works.
For us.
Yeah.
It works. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. And so I had been there, and actually I went there by myself, and I did have a good experience, positive experience. I also went to a dinner party the same week because they invited me back then as well. Also had a very positive experience. But I can remember that somebody at that dinner kind of like was a little bit inquiring with me and just asking me like, yeah, like, you know, where are you at? Like, have you given your life to Jesus? You know, or like something along those lines. And I still remember at that time, like I had no idea. And it was kind of like a little bit, I was still very like cautious in a way, you know. So at that time, I probably said, no, I haven't. No, I don't know. You know, it's kind of like I was at that stage. But so after that video, I was like, Sunday I'm going back to church, you know. It's just like, yeah. And then you already mentioned this, and yeah, we should probably tell it because it's quite a extraordinary story as well. But yeah, so this lady that made this particular video that I saw, she's called Gabby Lucia, and after this video, and I watched it a couple of times, I just sent her a text on Instagram and just said, I mean, I just shared with her, look, thanks for making this video. Like, this is really important and impactful right now, and yeah, just thank you. And she's like, yeah, are you going back to are you going to church? Do you have a church already? And I'm like, yeah, I have one. I'm gonna go back now. And so I'm just gonna like keep going with that story now a little bit because it kind of leads. Okay, so I went back to Freedom the next Sunday, and yeah, had a really beautiful experience. And I was just like, wow, you know, it's like I think this is what I've been longing for. You know, I like this feels so different, but at the same time, like it feels like this could really be what I've been looking for all along. So I did from the start, like I did have this feeling of like, this is something deep, like this is something important. This is a big change that is happening right now. And yeah, so I actually think it was that first time that I went back that in the break of, so there's 2 services on Sunday at Freedom, and I was going to the later one. And in the break, no, sorry, I had been at the first one, and then in the break, right, you come up and the people who are going to go into the second service are already there, so there's a little crossover there. And in just that like short break, there was a lady, and we just start chatting, and she's just like, yeah, I'm from the US. I'm here with my dad. We're just on holiday, and I'm just visiting this church, and blah, blah, blah. So we speak maybe like 2 minutes, and then she's like, yeah, I have to go down, but like, and I'm like, yeah, if you need travel tips for Portugal, we can, we can exchange numbers, and I can just let you know. She's like, yeah, that would be super nice. We go to the south, blah, blah, blah. And so we exchange contacts, and then after that, like, they spent some time in Portugal still. I gave them some travel tips, and we stayed in touch, like, loosely. And she was also like, yeah, I'm moving coast. I'm moving from San Diego to Florida, and there's a new project and new work and whatnot. And then, yeah, we didn't communicate a lot. We communicated loosely. But then a couple of weeks later, I get a photo sent from Gabby Lucia, so from this lady who made the video originally. And on Instagram, she sent me a photo, like a selfie, saying, look who I just met. And it was her and Alexis, who is this other lady who was at church, in the same car, because Gabby had picked her up from the airport, because they're now in the same kind of church plant project. And when they connected on Instagram, they saw that they're both connected to me on Instagram, and they're like, why are you connected to Phil? And she's like, yeah, that's why. So then they told each other the story, and I mean, it's just such a wild way of how we've been connected. Yeah.
I love that story. That's just how God works. I feel like those the things where you cannot make this stuff up. You cannot be like, well, yeah, and then this happened. No, it's this is really what God does. He interconnects his children so much, and it always amazes me. I've had so many experiences by now where I'm like, wait, you know this person as well? And we're continents apart. How does that happen? And it always just amazes me and just makes my heart so glad for it. Just shows how much he cares and how much he's out for every single one of us, and already has this specific and perfect plan to get to the one, to leave the 99, to go to that one sheep, right? Sometimes you think, okay, how did he get to me, right? This random person who's dabbling in a new age, trying to find solutions to their life, and God is already well, I've been with you the whole time. I've sent you on that journey for some specific reason, I'm sure, and I've been there, and I did not leave anything to chance. I didn't leave anything just to solve itself. No, I've actually worked on your heart the whole time, have put my grace in you, and have given you my grace so that you could actually turn to me and follow me. That's so incredible to me every time. And then he puts all these people in our life to just plant those seeds and help us on that journey, or to simply make us understand something, or I don't know, just all these little bits and pieces that pull together into what he has for us. So that's so incredible. And yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about, so now you decided to follow Jesus, or at least start going to church and turn your life into a different direction. And there was something, okay, I want to get to know this Jesus guy. I want to follow God. And how did that look like? Was that something, because you were obviously involved heavily also with your music and all those things into that whole spiritual new age scene, and had a lot of identity in there, and now it's almost that path of, okay, there's certain things that I might want to repent for because God puts that in my heart to turn away from those, and yet it's making up my entire life. So I would love to hear your experience on that.
Yeah, you said that beautifully, by the way. Yeah, and it's really it's just amazing to receive that, right? And to be wow, how important is each and every one of us to him, and how wonderful is it that he sometimes supernaturally kind of just confirms or speaks to us in certain ways, right? I mean, that's just so amazing. Yeah, so for me, that was almost, I would say, I mean, definitely it was a big shift from there. That was almost like a light switch of me realizing, okay, I've been feeling this for a while. I just didn't know where to turn to otherwise, right? It's spiritually, and also in terms of community. But that's the beautiful thing, and that's also one of the things that I'm excited about now. Is just I know that not everyone is gonna probably go to a church and go every week, but for me the thing is every person should at least know that there's an option to have a relationship with Jesus and with other people who follow Jesus and who love Jesus. I'm how could I not know this for such a long time, right? So I really felt I've been also so blessed to land at Freedom because it was the perfect place for me to land with my background and kind of like with that story, because there's like plenty of people who have been in the new age in there. And I also felt very understood and supported. So that was such a blessing, and I'm so grateful for it. And yeah, I pretty much had to just in many regards do like almost like a U-turn. I mean, I remember that with events and stuff like this, I stopped. For the moment, I stopped. Even it's like I was recording a particular song in the video in the studio, and even with that song, because it wasn't fully kind of like reflecting what I was experiencing now, I just had to stop all the things in the tracks like at that moment, pretty much. I mean, I did have some like live music engagements already booked, which I didn't cancel them. I still went. I was amazed and surprised at the openness of a lot of people in the new age, telling them about my own journey with Jesus now. And many of them were curious because many of them are seeking, and many of them are still looking for something and longing for something that they feel they haven't found yet, but they also in a way know that like something's out there. So I'm happy about that. And I also want to like stay open to things like that, because it's always great to speak to people. And again, many people that are deeply in the new age, I know they have an actual true honest longing, and they're actual true honest seekers. But yeah, sometimes it's as it was for me, sometimes it's even hard to kind of like be aware of all the options that are out there. And yeah, I started going to church every week. That was amazing. And just getting to know people there, and like speaking to more people there, and being a little bit like, just having some people who were mentors to me in faith, which is amazing. I still feel like a baby Christian, as our friend Martin also would say. But that's just what it is. But that's also completely okay. And yeah, so that was very important.
I mean, he has been very sweet. I think, was it like he said something like, I've been a Christian for like 17 years or something, but I feel like a baby Christian, something like that. And I was like, okay, if you're a baby Christian, like I'm literally like, I was just born.
It's true. He's very humble.
I love that. It's just yeah, exactly. It's really good.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, obviously, I also have to say I'm grateful for so many resources that are out there today. Like, I mean, you know, be it YouTube or whatever it is, like there's so many amazing people creating content, and just like having the ability to learn, starting to read the Bible for the first time in my life, which is a great experience. And also, yeah, I'm in very early stages, but it's super beautiful to dive into that book and to learn from the book and also about the book, which has been really nice. And we can really be so grateful that there's so many resources, books and videos and like podcasts and stuff like this out there where we can learn. That has been really important for me. And it's really fascinating as well to learn about that. And yeah, so the next kind of like big changes that were coming up for me was that pretty soon after that, God was kind of like putting on my heart that it's about time for me to move back to Austria after almost 5 years of living in Portugal, which he also did in a supernatural way, and made it very, very clear for me, because I can definitely be a person as well that can be kind of like maybe paralyzed by overthinking or by, just questioning and doubting. But that was very, very clear for me. And also he made it very clear for me that also that I felt like I wanted to get baptized, which I'm also super happy I was able to do through Freedom City as well, while I was still living in Portugal in the Atlantic Ocean, which was a very, very special day for me as well. So he just came in and just started really sweeping some things up.
No, it's so cool, and it's beautiful also just from the outside to witness and like to see like a bit of that journey, and then to be there for someone's baptism and to celebrate that together is beautiful. And then to, I don't know, even if it's just through Instagram and through seeing someone's journey a little bit online or here and there in a conversation, or we got to meet again during Renaissance conference in November, just to see where someone is heading and going on their walk with Jesus, and to be part of that journey, even on the sidelines, it's just so sweet to, it just warms my heart because of, and I said that before, but just because of how intentional God is, how Jesus just starts his relationship with us in such a personal way, and he cares so deeply about who we are and how we proceed on that journey. And for some of us it might be a very radical moment, and for others it might be a bit of a longer journey of going back and forth between different kind of things. And then there's some who like dive headfirst into the Bible or even meet Jesus through reading the Bible, and then others who are like on a slower process even with that. And I actually just chatted to a girl during the weekend, and she's been a Christian her entire life, in a sense of she grew up Christian with her parents being Christian, and even attended church her entire life on a regular basis, like every single Sunday. But she's never read the Bible as an adult herself. And so just now she started reading it and started to fall in love with the scripture. And I remember a couple months back, I had a chat with her and she was telling me, no, I'm not going to read this book. Like she was really resistant towards reading the Bible, because she also always felt like this was just like natural that she goes to church because that's what her parents put into her lap. But it wasn't a step that she had ever taken by herself. And now seeing how she's pursuing her relationship with Jesus and kind of, just starting her own journey, not the one of her parents, is so sweet and so beautiful. And I think, that just speaks to how intentional he is in all the ways. And but you were just speaking on moving to Austria. That was actually something that I also wanted to ask you about. And it's also very interesting because it almost feels like it's almost also a way of like a little bit of a fresh start. It's like you're now rebuilding your new life, and even in a new place. So there's something about that as well.
Yeah, it's been a big change for sure. And it's really crazy because even, maybe 1-2 months before kind of like Jesus really started showing up in my life, I mean, it was always a question in the back of my mind, kind of like that I had, but it wasn't really present, and I wasn't kind of like planning on doing that. But it was just, once it happened, it just became quite clear. And it's been a big change, but it's also really been, I would say, confirmed for me that it was the right choice. And also that this time is this chapter is sealed now and is completed now. And it was a very beautiful and important chapter. But there's been big changes for me last year that they started in the spiritual realm, but they also became very, very tangible in the physical realm as well. And so I moved back to Austria. A lot of things shifted, but also have been really led and just like provided for by God. Really, I can only say it like this. And so I would say one of the biggest changes that I feel is that I just feel like I'm building my life on this like very, very solid spiritual kind of foundation. So I don't know, when in the new age there's so much talk about I don't know, spiritual warfare and like all the techniques and everything again like that we have to do to be, I don't know, strong or protected and all these things. It's just really it's so humbling, which I'm so grateful for, this walk with Jesus. But there's like I think often people see humbling as something negative, but I think there's such a power in actually just accepting things how they really are. And I would say that the humbling is just a reflection of like how it really is. Like we can't really do anything without him. Everything that we have, everything that we get to enjoy is a gift of God anyway. And kind of like, I just feel like things have been put into the right order. And therefore, you know, that the house of my life is stable now, much more stable. It's like this thing where, right, he speaks about like building the house on rock or on sand. And yeah, I really think that there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, that sounds like it. And do you think like moving for you also, I mean it's like in a way also brings you closer to family, right? It just brings you closer to a lot of values that also are part of what God values, right? Like building, like you said, a stable life, building on a foundation, valuing family, valuing relationships, and having community around you, plugging yourself into a church where one can serve. And yeah, so I don't know if that's something that you can resonate with or relates with you as well.
100%. Yeah. Connection to family and like also now, again, like a closeness to family so that we can actually have more time together is definitely something that I really enjoy now. And that also he showed me that, yeah, this is important for me. And also, I think that for me, it's also been a little bit connected to, I guess, like we talked about maturing and immaturity in the beginning. So I think it also has to do with a certain maturing of just seeing, okay, like what do I, intend for the next phase of my life to be important. And I personally would love to have a family at a certain point. And I also, in a way, know that this would be a beautiful thing to do closer to my family. So it also felt like it's the right time to start strengthening those roots and those connections again. And yeah, I guess a little bit also because you mentioned repentance before. I think also for me, and I'm not saying, you know, everybody is very personal in their decisions of like where they live and everything, but definitely for me, a time in Portugal also was a little bit connected with just basically maximizing like my own personal preferences and just like getting as much of the things that I personally like and enjoy and just try to kind of like optimize for that, which is neither good nor bad because everything comes with its own challenges anyway. But I just felt like, yeah, it's that time again to kind of like maybe think about the next chapter of my life and like align things in that way. And yeah, I think that's been a big part.
That's beautiful. I think that's something that God just does with our hearts. Like the Holy Spirit in us just transforms us to, I don't know, I was never someone, I would say I was pretty selfish most of my life. And just at one point, God just changed my heart. And all of a sudden, I could not do other than wanting to serve. And it's actually it was, in the beginning, it was a bit funny to me almost. It was like, this is like very unlike me. Like I never cared so much about helping others, serving others, inviting others into my home. It was always a nice idea, but it almost always felt like an inconvenience or something that takes extra resources, etc. Or I don't know, spending my entire Sunday going, not only going to the service of the church service, but actually being there to welcome people or to practice worship before, etc. So I mean, not to say that I'm not selfish anymore. Like I surely have a lot of traits of just individualism, as we all do, and living in that world. But God has changed something in my heart where almost, supernaturally he put that in my heart of like living differently and wanting different things that I didn't want before. And I think that just speaks to his character and what the fruit of the Spirit also is, right? He roots us in him, and then from there we start to carry different fruits and they're growing on us, and it just changes us outwardly as well. And it's not by our own might and power trying to be that person or do that thing, or I don't know, just being more liked or leading a better life necessarily, but it's something that just develops and transforms from within. And I think that's so powerful because it also shows that difference of being saved by grace. And then we talked a bit about the Catholic Church as well before, where a lot of what I learned in my childhood actually was you have to like kind of just be a good kid and work for it, and you have to be perfect, instead of knowing that because I'm saved by grace, I'm changed. So I'm not going to stay the same. I'm not going to stay in a position where I am living a life that is in opposition to God, but it's not because I have changed everything. It's because He has worked in me so that my ways can change in the first place. And I think that's so beautiful. And I feel like that speaks even to what you just said. Just as one of the last things before we wrap up, I would love to hear a little bit, because I know music is a huge part of your life, and it's also something that I love. I love singing personally as well, but I know that you're even deeper into that, and you also play guitar and I think you play the piano as well, probably.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. But yeah, so you're a very musical and you're a very gifted musician, and I would just love how your relationship with Jesus and that journey also has changed your music and your relationship to music as well.
Yeah, it's still very fresh, but it definitely changes my music as well, because it's just such a direct expression of like what's happening on the inside, right? So I mean, it's just kind of like the songs that are coming now are new, are different, are just kind of like looking towards Him and being quite clear about that. And so that also means that some of the songs that I had written over the years, some don't really resonate with me anymore right now. Some, funny enough, still do, because they kind of like were already speaking about exactly that and about the relationship that I just feel now a lot stronger with God. And it definitely has been an interesting time as well to reflect on like being a musician, also in the light of what you just shared as well, with like service and kind of like, you know, selfishness and just like the kind of like egotistical nature as well of a part of us that wants to be acknowledged or maybe even like praised and all of these things. I mean, we would probably call this like pride now, which has been a very interesting reflection for me to just look at. I mean, I try to always reflect on like, why am I even making music? But it goes without saying that, definitely it's very easy to be tempted just by kind of like wanting to be special and wanting to stand out and wanting to receive praise and like acknowledgement by people. And I also remember that in the last kind of like at least months, maybe years as well, before that big shift happened for me in my life, I also already felt how empty it is to kind of play somewhere to get the praise and to get the acknowledgement, which definitely also part of me just, you know, wanted to experience, and then kind of like wake up the next day and just feel like all of this is gone, like nothing's left from it. You know, it's very shallow. It's very it doesn't really have any substance. And so I mean, how beautiful that God is using music to also bring people closer to Him and to pray and to remind us of Him and to like deepen the relationship with Him. So I mean, I joined the worship team at the church that I go to now here in Austria, which is beautiful, and new songs are coming through, which I wanna also at a certain point record and release. But it's definitely been a big shift in terms of like what's the intention and like what's the drive behind it, and yeah, now it's kind of like trying to just use the gift of music that God gave me for his glory, and to like build his kingdom and to serve his people. And that is nice, because it also takes the pressure off of me of having to do anything in particular with it, because it's him
Yeah.
doing what he wants through me and through music. So that's been freeing. Yeah.
That's beautiful, and I love the reflection on it, and just that it doesn't necessarily have to be for anyone else, but it can also be for you and your own journey and process first, and also in a way to express either gratitude or just something to the Lord himself, right? And or even just reflect on the relationship that you're building with Jesus. I think that's something that every time I'm reading Psalms, and I actually just yesterday posted about it, because I was just reading and I was like, this is actually so funny. Like, not funny in the sense of funny, but I don't know, it just was funny to me, in a way that it really gives instruction to like someone to play the flute with it, right? So in the end, every psalm probably had a melody, and it's so sad that we actually don't know the original. I would
Mm.
really love to to know the original, or the first time it was ever played. How did they play that? And I mean, God now gives us the freedom, obviously, to use all those psalms in the way that we now create worship music, right? So a lot of worship music actually is built out of those psalms, and yet it's so sweet to me to think that this was actually being sung. Like, it's actually music, and that heartfelt cry to God, or that gratitude that he is just so kind, and that he makes sure that we are safe in him, that we are walking in the palm of his hand, and that our adversaries fall, and all this, what really concerns us in our day-to-day life as well. The one who lies is going to be put down, and the one who's walking with the Lord and puts his heart in the right place because he has God, that one is going to be lifted up. And so all of that is just so wonderful to me, and it just makes music even sweeter as it is. And knowing that also it's such a big part of God's heart, because he literally put a whole book on it there, right? So it's just very sweet. And even with that, like, David's writing in the Psalms is so personal, and it yet yes, now the whole world can read about it, but in that moment I almost imagine or envision how he wrote that just very intimately, and it didn't even think about, oh, whom am I going to impress with that, just sharing his heart. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to create and to serve, and to just follow God's heart on that path. And yeah, so I love what you shared on that as well. So just the last three questions before we wrap up. What's your favorite verse when you are wanting to realign your heart, and or just if you feel the need to hear God's voice, to read God's voice?
Yeah, I'm grateful for this one, that you gave me a little heads up that you're going to ask me about a verse, because I'm still quite new to the Bible, and I do read a lot, but to recite it, I couldn't have done it without looking it up. But I had a verse on my heart like the last couple of days that I also read, and it's Matthew 11:28, where he speaks about just that, the burdened and the weary can find rest in him, right? And that's just, for me, so beautiful. And especially also with what we talked about, and with like kind of like both of our stories are also connected to, at least for me, I'm like, I know that so many people who are in various different directions that's actually what they're looking for, and it's so understandable. And I really just feel like, I haven't had the type of rest that I have with Jesus. And it's just what grace to be able to come to him.
That's beautiful. I love that one as well. It truly, you just walk through things differently. And even if you're not freed from all anxiety or all troubles of life, or things that come against you, and like you walk through the same life that everybody else still walks through, where there's a fallen world around you, where bad things happen, where people suffer, but you just have this, and we mentioned it before, but you have this rock that you're leaning on, and you have a hand to lean back on, and that just makes all the difference. So yeah. So
Amen.
one of the other 3 questions is one truth you wish every person, like they could be Christian or not Christian yet, knew.
Yeah, I think what we spoke about, like I would really love for everybody to just know that there is the option to have a personal relationship with Jesus, and also a relationship with a community of people who love Jesus. That is possible, that is out there as an option. I would love for everybody to just know that that's an option. And then they still obviously have to decide, like not everybody's going to do that, we know that, but that's something that I would wish for everyone, that that option is out there.
And I don't know, it's just something that I'm taking away from our conversation as well, is that they can come as they are. Like they don't, like you, the first time you ever came to church, you came there for the music, but you didn't have the answer yet to, do you follow Jesus or don't you? And I think that was actually something that in my heart I was also a little bit scared about. What kind of questions are they going to ask me the first time I stepped into church? And just knowing that there are churches out there that they're happy for you to come as you are. And as we also talked about, you're going to be transformed by the Spirit in you. And it's not that you have to have it all figured out when you take that first step onto the journey. And I think that's so encouraging, so important to know, because yeah. And if you feel like you're stepping into a church space where that is not the case, where you cannot come as you are and then be transformed from there, then maybe it's not the place for you. Maybe you need to find a place that is more suitable to you. And the cool thing then is you also see that it's a good place for you if you're not being left as you were found. So you want to be going through transformation. You don't want to stay where you actually first were, but you don't need to already come as a perfect person, and no one around you will ever be that. So I think that's just very important to know. So very last thing, where can people find you, follow you, and yeah, just share your details so that if someone wants to connect with you, they can do that.
Yeah, pleasure. On Instagram, I am phil.alexander.music. And that's the best way to connect with me if anybody wants to. And I'm also, definitely have an intention of starting to post more again, even though it does take time. You know, this creating content actually takes a lot of time and energy. But there's some stuff there, and very happy to connect with people there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that conversation. Really enjoyed it so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you.